Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the invitation to preach. I was just going to come up here and get my church fix on today. I was just going to sit out here and hang out and lean up against one of those stone pillars and just soak it all up. And then these guys said, "Hey, why don't you preach?" And I thought I would be a fool to let that opportunity go. And so I had 3 sermons I was considering for today. One of them I briefly outlined in the call to prayer, which you'll find in your emails for today. So if you want to see what the other sermon would have been, then you can read about that in the call to prayer. And I've gotten one message back from a parishioner who couldn't be here today, reflecting on that. So that was wonderful. And then I'm taking one of the pieces today, and the third one, I'll just let that one go. So I'll tell you straight out that I have not been having very much fun. Work has been work, and I've been catching myself not smiling. You know, and sometimes as a chaplain, that's just not a good thing. And, you know, because you need to be the one who is up all the time. You know, you chaplains don't have a bad day. So I will find myself reminding myself, just smile. You know, and then other people smile and it all goes well. But I haven't been having very much fun, and I've been trying to kick it into gear. So as I prepared for this sermon, or as I selected this sermon of the 3, I went looking for an illustration. So I want to show you the illustration that I found, and hopefully this other microphone is working so you can see it. So so I went looking for a bulldozer. All right, and so I found, actually we did quite a market analysis of all the remote control bulldozers on the market and read all of the customer reviews, and there really isn't a really good one out there. But this is the best one you can find. It's not very good. We're probably going to send it back. The electronics are very, very dainty. We went to separate the 2 prongs so that we could charge it up, and the whole thing fell apart. But I have it, if you look at the connector in here, you'll see that I've wedged some pieces of a Q-tip, the cotton, into the little socket to hold the wire in there so it won't fall apart. And I wedged it in there with a toothpick so that it's all stuffed in there. So hopefully it'll make it down the aisle. And then after church, yes, you can play with it. The people from the first service said, "Well, can we play with the truck?" I said, "No, not till after the second service because I've got to make sure it gets through." So it works pretty well. And yeah, so as long as the lights come on, you're good to go. And then, so it actually, the dump or the bucket actually comes up pretty well. Makes some really cool sounds. I don't know if you can hear them. You can, some pretty cool sounds. And now we're gonna see how good the range is. What's really great are the various sounds that this thing makes. It says, you know, it makes sounds, it invites you to come and play it. Now I'm really curious to see if I can make it back to the church. We thought maybe we'd collect the offering this way. But it would be those small offerings that we could collect. So this is really exciting, actually, that I made it all the way to that. I was chasing a cat, my friend Heather yesterday, but it's one thing when kids are out to get you, but it's another thing when they really are out to get you. And that cat really was convinced. This thing is out to get you. So I made it to the back, and now let's see if I can make it back. So, the title of today's sermon is Christ with Cosmic Bulldozers. And all of this is just to suggest the title so you won't forget it. This is just one huge gimmick, and Christ with Cosmic Bulldozer is the theme for today. So let me introduce you as the bulldozer's coming back up. So this sermon's been in the works for, I think now, about 25 years or so. I can remember as far back as Big Piney, Wyoming, and I've not preached this sermon before. Come on now. Yeah, I'm going backwards, so it's a little hard to negotiate. So, come on. Let's go. We gotta go to work. Gotta go up to the pulpit now. As far back as Big Piney, Wyoming, I can remember as I would read the scriptures. Let's sit right there. Can you see it? Is that enough? We need to lift. I think we need to lift the bucket up. Wait. One more thing. There we go. I just want it to be visual so that you can get it. As far back as Big Piney, I remember writing in the margins of my Bible and my prayer book as I was the Psalms, the prayer book. I always prefer the prayer book translation of the Psalms. CV, cosmic holism. CV, everywhere in the margins of my Bible. Here it is again, here it is again, here it is again. The cosmic bulldozer shows up again. What's the cosmic bulldozer? Well, it's when God brings the lofty down and lifts up the lowly. It's all throughout the scriptures, paramount. The cedars of Lebanon are brought low, right? And the valleys are filled up. Those who are lowly are lifted up. And God is in this business, it seems, and I've been reflecting on it for quite some time, of this cosmic bulldozer, bringing the high places down, bringing the low places up. Does this sound okay? There's a little bit of a weird reverb. Okay, I'm just going to keep it. All right. You got it? That's the cosmic bulldozer. This is just so you remember the title. So 10 years from now, you're like, oh, yeah, I got it. All right, so now I'd like to see if it holds up the scripture. So let's look at the Magnificat. You can follow along. You can just listen, or you can follow along, or if you have your Bible, you can open up to Luke chapter 1. Mary's song. It's absolutely beautiful. And we get to look forward to the choir. So we get to reflect again, which is absolutely beautiful. Let's see if the cosmic bulldozer is in here. I'm going to start with verse 50. Several lines in. I'm reading from my Bible, so it might not match up perfectly. His mercy, God's mercy, extends to those who fear Him from generation to generation. God has performed mighty deeds with His arm. God has scattered those who are proud in their hearts. And here it is. God has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. You see it? He has filled the hungry with good things, but He has sent the rich away empty. That is one portrait of many portrayals in the Scripture of God as cosmic bulldozer. I invite you to a lifelong study of the Scriptures, and when you come upon it, maybe you'll just put a little CV in there on the margins and reflect upon it. Of 3 years in seminary, how many papers do you remember that you wrote? How many can you talk about today that are meaningful to you? If you press me, I might be able to remember more, but I can really only remember one this morning. And it was a paper which was not assigned. I happened to be in 1 Samuel chapter 2. I don't know why I was in 1 Samuel chapter 2, but I wasn't. It might have been in my own personal reading. And I came upon Hannah's prayer. And when I read about the prayer of Hannah in 1 Samuel 2, I was a seminary student. I was excited about God and the Bible and stuff like that. And I just couldn't believe it. I saw Hannah's prayer and I said, the Magnificat is in this. I can see parallels between Hannah's prayer and the Magnificat. And very quickly, Hannah was the mother of the prophet Samuel. She was the wife of Elkanah. She was barren. She had not had any children. And she so much wanted to have a child that she went to the house of God at Shiloh and she prayed, God, if you give me a child, I'll give the child back to you. So God answered her prayer. She had the child Samuel. She kept the child close to her while the child was near her until she weaned the child. She took Samuel to the house of God, gave him to the priest Eli, and said, there you go. I promised God I would give him back. So may he serve God throughout his whole life. And like Mary, she had to give up her son prematurely, right? And offer her son to the service of God. It's a beautiful prayer. So I introduced 1 Samuel chapter 2. I introduced Hannah's prayer to you. So could I read a couple verses? And then you're welcome to go back, check it out, hold both prayers up and parallel them, and maybe you'll get as excited as I was. I went to a professor, Pat Reardon, and I said, can I write the paper? And he said, go write the paper. You know, you're not going to get credit for it, but write the paper. So, I excitedly went, I had all this other work to do, and I just dug into the parallels between these two prayers. I finished the paper, and like a good Labrador, I sends poverty and wealth. He humbles, and God exalts. God raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. God seats them with princes and has them inherit a throne of honor. Have I sold you yet? God, Christ, the cosmic bulldozer. Back to the New Testament. We're going to go new, old, and then I'll wrap it up. So we're halfway through the scripture. Back to the New Testament. Back to Luke. Back to Mary, Elizabeth, Jesus, John the Baptist, Advent, foretelling the coming of Christ. And what does John the Baptist do when he's given the audience and is announcing Jesus the Christ? John the Baptist quotes Isaiah 40. This is Luke chapter 3. Listen for the cosmic bulldozer. A voice of one calling in the desert, prepare the way for the Lord, make straight paths for him. Every valley shall be filled in, every mountain and hill made low. The crooked roads shall become straight, the rough ways smooth, and all humankind will see God's salvation. So I had to go back to Isaiah 40. So we go to Isaiah 40. And there it is. And I don't know if you have already choir members. I bet there are some choir members already. I could see on someone's face this morning at the early service that I just guessed that they were thinking about Handel's Messiah. Right? When you start to hear these themes, because music is, thank you so much for your ministry. It's one of the reasons I come up here among many, is just to get my music fix as well. Because music sets the scriptures inside of us. And so go check out the Messiah. If you don't have it, download it. It's great to listen to it this time of year. Handel chooses, get this, no less than 3 of the pieces in the Messiah come from this passage. The very first piece of the Messiah is comfort my people. Verse 1 of chapter 40. The second piece of the Messiah is every valley will be exalted. That's from verse 2. And then, and the glory of the Lord is from verse 5. 3 pieces. Even if you get a quick version of the Messiah, that's about 10 minutes of the entire piece is from this passage. And the centerpiece of it, this beautiful comfort my people, and the centerpiece is, guess what? Every valley, shall be exalted. And it's better than just reading it. Because the music gives me the sense of the cosmic bulldozer. All these voices coming in. The crooked straight, and the rough places plain. And I'm not trying to try out the choir. I'm just giving you the idea that music gives us that sense. You know, in the Messiah, when God says, I will shake the heavens and the earth. Don't worry, I'm not going to try it. It's tough. It's a difficult piece. Then you get the sense like, okay, man, we're shaking. Right? We're shaking. And the rough places plain. Every valley shall be filled. Christ, as we anticipate Christ in Advent, is the one who comes as the cosmic bulldozer to bring down the high places and lift up
What's the gospel in this? Well, it's probably manifold. And what the Holy Spirit does with you as a result of this sermon could be completely different than with me. But I'm going to give you 3 things. Because 3 is a good number for sermons. Right? And when you get to 3, you think, all right, I've got 3. All right. So I'll give you 3. All right. Number 1. Christ is the cosmic bulldozer, and we are not. I need to remember that. Christ is the cosmic bulldozer. You are not, and I am not. And there are going to be times when we're going to want to be, folks. There are going to be times when we're going to want to get the cab and throttle that baby down. We go out into our culture, we see injustice, we see high places, we see inequity, and we just want to power through that, and we just want to bust down that mountain, and we're all fill that valley. I will make this right. Don't we? So we just have to remember, number 1, Christ is the cosmic bulldozer, and we're not. Number 2. The mountains and the valleys are before us, people. They're in front of us, church. And we will encounter them. We will see it. We will feel it. And, check this out. God might call us to do something about it. But we would do well if we followed Christ, the cosmic bulldozer, and didn't get ahead of Jesus. Tracking? So if we feel it, and we see it, and we feel that God is calling us to do something about it, we need to pray that Christ, the cosmic bulldozer, goes ahead of us, and then all we have to do is track behind. And it'll all be good. We'll have all the strength, all the courage, all the wisdom, all we need if we're following him. So, Christ is the cosmic bulldozer, and we're not. The valleys and the mountains are before us. And the third point is this. The mountains and the valleys are within us. There are times when we feel pretty high, pretty darn lofty, pretty good. And there are times when we feel pretty low. Yeah. And oh, the good news, church, is that Christ, the cosmic bulldozer, enters our hearts, enters our souls. It gives us wisdom to bring us down a little bit when we are feeling pretty good about ourselves. Just cut the tops off just a little bit. Let's share some with some other people here. And if you came this morning and you're feeling like you're in a valley, listen carefully as Brand comes behind the altar and begins the great Thanksgiving and says to you, lift up your hearts. Christ is the cosmic bulldozer, we're not. The mountains and the valleys are before us. The mountains and the valleys are within us. And even as I shared this sermon this morning and then closed my eyes, it didn't take long before, through the Spirit's vision, I could see the mountains and the valleys before me. And also have wisdom to see the mountains and the valleys within me. I'm going to let Mary